Movie reviews. I went to the movies. I did it. Went to a theater. I've done this a couple times since, the whole thing happened back in a year and a half ago. This is my first time, maybe like in the past 2 months, mostly because there really just hasn't been anything out. But I decided, let's do it. Let's go to the movies. I saw Profile. Profile was a movie I had no idea, nothing about it, but we saw it. Let's talk about it. The plot on IMDb reads, an undercover British journalist infiltrates the online propaganda channels of the so-called Islamic State, only to be sucked in by her recruiter. So this movie is based on a true story. That's the first thing you need to know. The second thing you need to know is that this all takes place on a computer, similar to Searching, Unfriended, this whole subgenre that really isn't like too popular, because that's really like those are the only movies I can think of that does this, but there are movies that do this. But it's a thriller. It's a slow burn. You see her develop this relationship with this recruiter. They want to get married. She's pretending like she wants to join ISIS because there was this whole trend of a lot of young European women who wanted to join, and so she was trying to infiltrate it and write a story about it. The premise is fascinating. That is a very interesting concept, and I think this movie does a pretty good job handling this subject. It's always tricky because when you're dealing with something like ISIS, you're never quite sure if it's going to be done well or not, mostly to stay away from controversy. And to be completely honest, I'm not even sure if I properly know how to talk about it, so if there were things in this movie that were completely offensive, I don't know if I would have been able to pick them up. So far in reading reviews, it seems like no one has too much of an issue with this. It just sometimes felt weird, and it felt weird because you weren't quite sure what this movie was trying to say, and ultimately at the end of it, I don't know if it said anything about this issue specifically. It was more just trying to tell you the story of this true story. So I guess if you go into movies wanting a message or a moral or like what am I supposed to walk away with, this movie doesn't really give you that. This movie is kind of just showing you, hey, this is what happened, this is a thing. Which I think is fine for the most part. It's just confusing at times within this film specifically because there are times where you think they're trying to get you to relate with this ISIS recruiter. There are times when this journalist is starting to get like what we think is real feelings for him, and it's almost like it's positioning her or us to side with her, and it doesn't really feel great because you like step outside of yourself and you're like, wait a minute, I don't want to agree with what these people are doing. So I think with a movie like this, it might have been helpful to get a little more nudge like, hey, this is bad, this is good, we want you to be against this and for this. But outside of the morals of this movie, like I said, it is very fascinating. It's a thriller and it's intense and you don't really know where it's going to go, and unless maybe you know how this real story ends. None of these actors I immediately recognize. So that was kind of a fun little thing because I think it kind of makes it feel more real. It makes it feel more authentic, and you can actually watch the movie for what it is, not just saying, hey, there's that person, hey, look at, they're doing a good job. This was just an unknown actor to me doing pretty good work. And of course the cast isn't huge because it takes place all on a computer screen, and so it's all through Skype, video calls, text, emails, a lot of Facebook, YouTube, so there's only so many actors that are presented to us. I think the style that this movie presents itself in, being on a computer screen, almost limits it in some ways. I think Searching probably did the best job, where I think maybe use it to its full potential. This movie, I'm not exactly sure. There are a lot of moments where it feels like cheap storytelling, where it just uses a YouTube video or like typing up a text and then deleting that text just to let us know her thoughts, and it doesn't really feel authentic. Like, nobody would be using a computer in this way, and I don't think it takes away from the movie too much, but there are definitely a couple instances I can think of where it just wasn't how anyone would act. And I think this movie definitely tried to let us in on what the main character was thinking, but I think it also fell flat because you can't really tell where her motivation is. It leads you to believe that she is falling for this person, that she actually wants to join ISIS, and then she kind of goes back on that, and she almost like loses all the other relationships in her life for this story, and I kind of wish we knew more about her. Like, is she just doing this for the story, or is she actually falling for this and being recruited? I also didn't love the ending of this. I think it felt kind of flat. And granted, it's probably because that's how the real story actually ended. They didn't want to add too much, but it feels like there's a lot more movie that we could have seen. It ends in a place that's not too exciting, and actually, like, it ends with the title card being the most exciting thing of like, wow, that actually happened. I wish we could have seen that play out. And of course, I think I'm going to struggle with this for months, but anytime I see a movie in theaters now, I always want to give it a higher score because it was a fun time. It was a thrilling adventure to find out what happens to these characters. It was a great movie to see in theaters, and I don't know if I would have had as much fun watching it at home, but I think in the end I'm going to give this 3 out of 5 stars if you follow me on Letterboxd, and you should. So that's Profile. Have you seen it? What do you think? Comment below, let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and I will see you next time.